Hey gardeners, Amy here with Garden Up. In this video today we're going to explore how to prune a rhododendron. Alright, so I have a confession to make. 15 years of professional gardener, I've never known how to properly prune rhododendrons. And the reason why is because usually with most woody plants, they have a strong central branch or a central leader or an apical meristem. Any of those types of branching with lateral branching that's either opposite or alternate in orientation. So it's easy, if I want to make a reduction cut, it's easy to just reduce down to one of those other nodes, and then, I can see where it needs to be really easily. Rhodies don't grow that way. Rhodies grow with forks. And so if I want to make a reduction cut, well, I want to reduce both of these, which means I'm going down to the next fork. Well, but then I need to go down to... You see the problem here, I have to keep going down to the next fork, and before I know it, I'm cutting off the entire branch. And so I don't normally prune rhododendrons, but there are times when it needs to be done. So I brought in a professional to help me. This is Vesely, many years arborist. Okay, and tell us a little bit about your credentials, Alan.
I have been involved in the horticultural field since long as I can remember. Since I was 14, I started in an FFA program, and my instructor in high school was just absolutely phenomenal. Also had a landscape course, so I began learning way long ago, and it just became my passion from there. I've studied at SCC, learned identification and pruning classes, and have just simply been in this field ever since. I've worked for different landscape companies. I've worked at Northwest Plant Healthcare, which is
one of the best arborists in town.
Green company. I'll tell you what,
absolutely.
I thought I knew a lot till I worked with them. And then I discovered that, nope, I've got a whole lot more to learn, and did. So, 43 years now at doing this thing, still have a lot to learn, but I love sharing what I have learned, and it is quite a lot from all of that.
Absolutely. And 40-something years, you left me in the dust, so I'm gonna take advantage of Alan's knowledge and learn from him today, and I hope you'll enjoy joining me with this process. Okay, so the first step in pruning is always assessing the goals, right?
Indeed.
Okay, so here's the goal of this. We've got the rhododendron. This was planted probably 15 years before I bought this house, so it's now encroaching the walkway. It's growing out over the walkway. It's also growing out onto the porch, which means whenever the screen door opens, it hits the branches. And so this is going to cause damage later also. The other problem is back here. That's where the faucet is for the entire yard. So the only way for me to adjust the water when I sprinkle is to lean over this railing and adjust and turn on and off, which I'm not going to be able to do this year. So I've made a couple of quick fixes by moving a hose controller out here, but I still need to be able to get to it.
Additionally on this, you don't really want any plant to be up against a house, because that can cause damage to the house in the long run of things, and that's never cheap to fix.
Yes. Yes,
so
absolutely.
We'll definitely want to look at keeping the plants away from the house.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves about landscapers that come in and put these cute little evergreen trees 2 feet from the foundation. And then I come in 5 or 10 years later and it's up in the eaves of the house and cracking the foundation, and the poor homeowner's like,
explain why you need to remove things. Huh?
Yeah. So the goals for pruning today are basically to reduce the size of the shrub all the way around, to get it off of the walkway, away from the house, and maybe even give me some space to where I can access the hose, the faucet, from the side, from the ground. That would be nice. It can keep growing that way, but even that, it's shading and kind of encroaching on my strawberries. And so I'd like to even reduce that over there a little bit. So as far as timing goes, I've still got some flowers on this, but it's pretty much done. So that's why, we scheduled 2-3 weeks ago.
Yes, indeed.
Assuming that it should be done flowering by now, but everything is 2 weeks behind this year. So it still has some flowers, but for the most part, it's done blooming, so we're gonna go ahead and do it.
Best time to prune a rhodie is just as the blossoms are fading, or just after, and when you start seeing all the new growth coming on. The new growth is what The hormones are being released in the plant to say, let's get to business, let's get to growing, let's get to doing.
Yes. So this is actually perfect.
This is the ideal time because we've got a whole bunch of new growth coming in. The flower blossoms are just starting to fade. So we are right on the money for when we want to prune these. Like I said, with all the hormones and things that are going on, it's telling the plant it's time to grow. Those hormones are going to be throughout the whole plant right now. So any pruning, any cutting that's done at this particular point in time, it's just simply going to say, oh, wait, that broke, that went away, that's not there anymore. Because whatever did these guys do before we came along to help? Well, they grew just fine.
Yeah.
Animals would break the branches, and the branches go whatever. They keep right on growing.
Yeah.
So, new growth, ideal time.
Take it away, sir. What do I do?
For most people that just want to simply do a little bit of clean it up, make it look good, let's start with just the simplest, removing the flower buds when it's all said and done blooming. You just put your fingers right here on either side of the bud, do a light little twist, and it comes right off. That's the easy way just to kind of clean these things up, make them look good. The flower, it'll come out and branch out from there. The next step is, it's getting too big, so we got to move uphill. We got to look at where are we going to cut these things back. And as Amy pointed out, these guys, really hard to tell, where do I prune it back to? We got a branch that's starting to come out here. These over here that are actually getting onto the walkway. If you cut them back too far, you're suddenly sitting with a big, empty, bare spot. Yeah. So, rhododendrons, when you prune them, you got to go back to one of the main branches. Rhododendrons don't like to branch out from just bare twigs. They can, but only up to a point. If you were to cut this back in this area, it is possible that it will put out new branches along here, but more likely it's going to wind up dying off. Mm-hmm. How do you encourage it to new growth? There's tricks. One of the ways is you can, if you've got an old branch, if you score it, just a little bit of damage to it, it'll start to encourage it here. But what you're looking at by doing that is waiting an extra year to get this to start coming out. By scoring it, by just causing a little bit of damage in this area like this, it'll want to start branching out here to say, uh-oh, this guy's gone, we need to replace the branch. Interesting. Then the next year, you can come back and prune it off. Nicking and notching, that's another way.
Yeah, okay.
That is what you need to do with a rhododendron if you want it to encourage, if you're winding up with bunch of stuff out here and nothing back here that's living. Yeah. Rhododendrons, you kind of got to think ahead on a 2 to 3 year approach to pruning them. Yeah. Because otherwise you wind up with, like I've said, big bare dead spots that are like unsightly looking or dead twigs hanging out there.
Well, and just branches that you can't cut on at all because where do you take it to? Right.
A good rule of thumb is once the branch gets over about thumb size, you're probably not going to have any success in cutting it without it just dying back. So, encouraging them to grow earlier, all the way back up to things around your pinky size, is the way to go about this. Yeah. But as far as pruning this whole guy back, let's work at getting him off the sidewalk here. Okay. On this guy, there's 2 branches predominantly that I'm seeing that are hanging out over the sidewalk. A little low guy here, and this little low guy is one that we're talking about being the problem. It's not got a lot to him. So I am actually going to score this guy right around here so that it will start to encourage new growth to come out. And you don't want to go all the way around, because if you go all the way around, you girdle it. Right. But you just want to give it probably about 1/4 to 1/3, just a little bit of damage. And I've just recently sharpened these. So even though you're not seeing much damage there, it is sinking into just barely through the wooded tissue. And when you do this, you can kind of feel there'll be a little bit of give. It'll bite through it. Yeah. And then you'll feel it'll give, and you'll feel resistance again. When you feel that resistance again, you've hit the inner layer of harder tissue, the actual wood of the plant. So once you hit that wood, you've gone through the cambium layer, which is the layer that you want to go through. That's what's going to encourage it to want to branch and grow. Now from there, now that I've scored it back here, I'm going to very lightly come back and just get some of this that's hanging way out into the sidewalk. And this is going to also aid in encouraging this to want to sprout, because no plant wants to go quietly into the night. They want to grow, they want to do, they want to thrive, they want to say, oh really, prune me, will you?
I will come back with a
I
vengeance.
will show you, indeed. Again, don't want to go too heavy because we want to try to encourage as much growth to come out from the interior so that we don't wind up with both big dead open holes in the whole thing. We have a big branch. Actually, remove this guy. Clear back to where it joins up with this back here.
Yep.
Because if you look at what's wiggling right now, everything behind it, there's still a nice wall of plant here. And definitely take your time while doing this stuff because, as I'm fond of saying, wood glue doesn't work. You can take it off, but you can't put it back on. It's much better to go shallow and gentle than severe all at once. Because you can always cut more, you can't put it back on. So I'm going to go back to this node back here where these guys have branched out. Dead doesn't grow, so dead can always come off anytime. We're going to cut this back here and flush cut. There is a branch collar on every plant. It's a point where the branch will heal over quickest. It's usually a slight swelling that exists right at the base. It's hard to see on Rhodies.
Yeah.
But you want to cut it up close because that branch collar, that's where the most active tissue is, and it's going to grow over and heal this wound the quickest. So don't leave little nubs sticking out because that's bad. Prune them off to the branch collar. This is real easy to see where the branch collar is now that that twig is gone. It's that little ridge that sits right up to the base of that trunk. And that little ridge there is what will heal over that stem quickest. And now, with just one cut,
look at that.
It's already back off the sidewalk.
I can see my sidewalk again.
2 cuts down here to pull this guy back in. That's all it takes. You don't have to be extreme with Rhodies. As the Rhodie grows, it kind of wants to droop down anyway. So you look at some of the very utmost phase bottom ones and decide, is this something I really, really, really want to keep? How attached to it am I, knowing full well that as this plant grows, it wants to kind of slowly sag itself down just by the weight of the plant. If they're really low, really underneath, and they're not really being all that, get rid of them. If they're hiding something, if they're obscuring something, if they're kind of like you need it there so that you're not like looking at pipes or something that you don't want to see, then leave it. In this particular case, the branch that's way down here, I'm going to say you're not doing much good. So we're going to look at actually taking that branch off as far back as possible. If I wanted to reduce this area in height, bring it down to say around an equal level, there's not much places that I can cut without leaving bare spots behind.
Right.
So this would be one of those areas that I would encourage the scoring to say, well, let's start getting some tissue regenerated in these areas in here so we can start getting some life coming up from the inside. And again, just a little quick, just a little notch. It's barely visible, which is just fine. That puts a little bit of stress on what's coming out, and it will encourage growth somewhere in through here. Mostly, it'll be out here near the ends. Normally when you prune, you always want to go back to a branch union, but when you're trying to encourage a Rhodie to produce some new shoots and things, you want to give it as much length as possible to do that in. Even though it's most likely wanting to put them out here, Rhodies are interesting that way. They'll do it wherever they need to. And you can do the same basic principle all along a rhododendron. Is you can do it pretty much with any tree. There's a particular branch you want to favor, but it's still not quite where you want it. You cut the branch you want to favor up higher and take off the one that you don't want to favor. And pretty much what I'm doing here.
Love it.
Is this guy here. Here, we'll do this one again. This guy here, he's not a bad branch because he's a little farther away from the handrail. This guy here is growing through the handrail, so we don't want this guy at all because he's going through the handrail. So we're going to take that right back here at the union.
Okay.
And then this branch, these branches here, which are coming out into the handrail as well, they're not really doing what we want. So we're going to take those back off at the union. And look, there's a little bud right here already showing itself up, so it's going to say, oh wait, you've gotten rid of all the buddies I need? Well, I'm going to fill in. And being on the top side, he's going to want to grow more this way.
Grow straight up. Okay.
With a lot of pruning, it takes just looking at the plant and seeing what it really wants to do on its own.
Yeah.
And then encouraging it to do what it really wants to do already. The choice has become, do we take the whole branch off? Or do we try to encourage new growth? I'm saying, looking at everything else that's still kind of filling in around it, it's not going to leave a huge bare spot to take him out. And pruning him back anywhere prior to that is, well, less is more. Let's start with removing less first. Let's just get what's rid of in the way first. All right?
Okay.
There's a little bit of the hole that I said was going to be there.
Yep.
It's not a bad, but we got this guy here. He's coming out right towards, I think it would be, just my opinion, considering we've got this, which is further back in, which is better and more ideal. Let's just go ahead and take this guy off. Pruning is a lot about choices, making the best choice possible. In this case, this is the thing about rhododendrons. We could have come back here, scored this here, and encouraged growth here. But in this particular case, I'm thinking it's just going to be better to let the branches that are underneath this one come in, fill out, because it'll give you more time, more opportunity to prune, to shape, to guide these that are on the inside.
Yeah.
And they'll fill in every bit as fast and every bit as well. Alright, more stuff. Okay, you're now getting back here towards the back side where we are almost to the hole.
Yeah.
Almost to where we want to be. And don't want to leave it too open, too sparse, because we still want to cover that. So now the choices start to get a little more difficult. There, this is fun.
So this is where I always run into, like the one you just took off
Uh-huh.
was a fork.
Uh-huh.
And now, but I want to take this one off too, so I got to go back down to the next fork.
Nope. Come up here.
Right there.
Because this branch is going away. He's going to fill in here.
Okay.
He's growing away from everything else. Let's leave him.
Okay.
Keep him in there. Let him stay in the game for a while.
Sure.
Because you can always take more off later. If
Yeah.
it really proved to be a headache, a problem, a pain, then we can come back to the next one back before it. And yes, with rhododendrons, that is the biggest challenge, is you want to pretty much go back each junction, each node along the way. But that comes with a hazard in that the further back you go, the more things are branching off of that particular branch. Where do you stop?
Yeah.
Well, less is more. Prune less. Leave more.
Yeah.
Because you can always go back with more. We got branches going everywhere. So let's go back to the next branch union here and encourage these little buds at the base of each of these leaves to replace it. Think, just like that.
Cool.
Now, working from the top down, you can already see we're getting a nice little line here, a nice little set of space here, so that you can not maybe comfortably, but definitely still be able to get through here.
Yeah.
We could go a lot further back still, but now we're going to start getting into how does the thing look if we go back too much further. And just for myself, I really love Rhodies. They are so showy. Trying to save as much as possible, and we can deal with the adversity, right?
Yes.
Go ahead and snip you off. This one here was coming out a little bit more, so I went back to where there was a former union, and we'll just let it keep coming out from that spot. And we can kind of keep trimming back to this area here, year after year after year, and just kind of keep the growth right in this area. If we have to go back a little further, we can go back a little further to the union below it. Looks like on this guy here, we got a couple little good branches up and a couple really long ones on below. We're going to keep the smaller ones. We're going to favor smaller branches now down here so that we keep the growth, but we trim him back in, out. And the same goes for down here. The last two branches I really want to take out here, coming back here to the union, we know that these leaves are going to produce new shoots, so let's encourage it. And now, when you look at this whole thing, we've got much more of a path through there. It's a little easier to squeeze through. It's been trimmed back in off. And here is the total lump sum of our cuts.
That's incredible. And that is not
Very
where...
little, Very little done.
That's not where I would have thought to cut at all. At all. Like, that's awesome.
But take a look.
I love it.
It's a lot further back. Can we go further still?
If we
yes,
want.
indeed we can.
Sure.
Same principle as what we've already been doing so far. Just little by little, work it back to the branch unions. If you kind of start getting to a spot where there's not much coming up, just score it a little bit so that you can encourage it, and then leave it for a season. Let it put out that growth. Once it puts out that growth, then you can come back, snip it back, and off you go.
Love it.
And that is pretty much
That's all there is to it.
all there is to it. So all that's left now
Sweet.
is I'm just going to go through and start bringing this down, bringing it in, making
All right.
it look nice. We'll take a look at this when we're all said and done.
I love it.
This branch here is exemplifying everything that I've been talking about. We've got all the new growth above it. Here's it getting ready to do its bud sets. But right down here, we've got a whole new branch coming out. So for lowering the height of this one, this is actually a great spot to prune it off so that we can encourage this little guy to stay down here
Yes.
and grow in.
I love it. So this one's a little bit tall. And I'm
Coming out a little bit more further in the area than we really want.
Yeah.
So let's look at what can we do for the future. And looking back down the stem, there's no leaves, there's nothing to really say this branch will be viable or survive if we cut it off too short. However, we look back up here and we've got some little branch, we can see some little buds sticking out right here. And by scoring it right at this point here, right below the branch union, it's going to encourage these two little buds to take off and want to grow. So we're going to score it for this year, give it a little bit of wound that's going to say, whoop, we're losing it up here, and it's going to take these two little buds down here and encourage them to want to grow. Next season, we'll be able to take this branch here off because these back here will have filled in.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. This looks awesome. And it's so much easier than I thought. I was way overthinking things. Like, that's just...
It can be a common problem.
Yeah, probably. You get to know just enough to get yourself into trouble. Yeah.
Experience is the best teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts on pruning Rhodies?
Take your time. Always start shallow, work a little deeper. They're not as hard as you think.
Good advice right there. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Alan,
My
for
pleasure.
helping me with this video and for teaching all of us how to prune Rhodies. Thank you all for watching. Again, if you'd like more content like this, remember to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, all those good things. I will see you next time in the garden.